G'day guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildkard. Thank you for watching the Wildkard Rugby Show. Like, comment, and subscribe. But yes, you are here today because the Autumn International November Test Series is now over. The final game was played between the Wallabies and the Ireland, the mighty Irish, at the Lansdowne Road. And I think a lot of Irish fans was a little bit disappointed by this result. A lot of people felt like they should have blown out the Wallabies by a much bigger margin. I thought I thought Andy Farrell was very kind to Prendergast, giving him 65 minutes of game time and only allowed Crowley to come on for the last 15 minutes. You know, I thought if Andy Farrell put on Crowley at half time, they could have blown out the Wallabies by a much bigger margin there. I think that Andy Farrell has pretty much judged that just correctly, gave as much time as possible for his youngster, Prendergast, and then just have Crowley to come on to close out the game, putting a lot of pressure on Farrell to perform, and then giving Prendergast a lot of time to rectify some of the issues that was happening in the game. So I thought that's actually really clever from Andy Farrell, especially the number 10 jersey. The succession plan from Johnny Sexton is still a big question mark. It's looking like Farrell is going to be taking care of that for now, but not Farrell, Crowley, sorry. Crowley's going to take care of that, but you need a backup. Someone has to be there in case he gets injured, and Andy Farrell is definitely giving plenty of opportunities for Prendergast to show that if he's got it or not to be at least on the bench for the purpose of the team. And going into this game, a lot of you guys saying, "Oh, Joe Schmidt." I reported that Joe Schmidt was going to get booed because Joe Schmidt thought he was going to get booed, right? And I just want to clarify that. Joe Schmidt wasn't around Ireland. He did not get the Ronan O'Gara treatment. I feel like you have to be a very, very big legend to get booed in Ireland. So I guess Joe Schmidt isn't quite big enough of a legend yet. And obviously Irish fans are pretty nice to him. And he's done quite a lot of great results for the Irish fans, and beating the All Blacks first time, Grand Slams, just one Grand Slam actually, and it is very well respected. But I just want to clarify, the booing was from Joe Schmidt thinking that it was going to get booed, not me. Okay, I just want to clarify that a little bit. So with that being said, Ireland did come out and confirm that there was a loss of $18.4 million deficit from the last financial year. A large part of that was contributed to the Rugby World Cup because they haven't really got any game played at home. The November Test Autumn Nation Series was something that a big chunk of money they missed out on. So despite that, the union is still in very, very good position. There's a bit of deficit, but they still have a lot of cash in hand and plenty of assets. So $69 million of cash. That's a lot of pounds of cash. And then in addition of $87 million of assets. So no debt. That's a pretty good financial situation that the Ireland Union is in, despite the loss. The loss would just come off, from the cash reserves, but it's not in any sort of danger, unlike some of the other unions that's struggling around the world. Wallabies. With that being said, the Rugby World Rankings hasn't changed at all. There was an article on Rugby Pass this week that said that the gap between the top 4 teams and the bottoms are just getting bigger and bigger. So yeah, you can see Argentina, despite being 5th, it's like a good, 3.5, almost 4 points behind France. And yeah, the gap is quite dramatic between these sides, considering like a 2-point change. It's already outrageously large, and it's a 4-point difference almost between 4 and 5. That is massive. So the Argentina needs to beat France like twice in a row in France to even surpass France. Basically, that's kind of like the gap. Just that's between the 4th and 5th place. How many points? What needs to happen for that to exchange places? I think that some of the teams like Scotland is probably getting a bit punished because their schedule. They haven't been able to consistently play against some of the top teams to get points, and it's very stacked in the bottom. 81, 80, and 78. Australia, Fiji, and and Italy, and England's not far off there as well. So all of these teams are quite clustered, and I do think that Scotland and Argentina probably deserve to be closer to the top four than closer to the bottom four right now. Yeah, so the big man Cian Healy, and he's currently the highest Test cap earner in the entire history of Ireland. As you can see here, this is the second time he wore the traditional Irish jersey. The first time when it was debuted 150 years ago, and this is the second time he's put on his old jersey to celebrate the 150 years on the weekend. And yeah, I mean, Cian Healy, he still thinks that he can go, and hopefully with Six Nation comes around, he's still looking to potentially get a couple of opportunities to extend that record for himself. He's not caught in time just yet. For the Wallabies, Tane Edmund had a 3-minute debut on the weekend. He was knocked out in the first tackle, head to the hip, and yeah, it was very disappointing. He's someone that's worked really hard to get into the Wallabies team. He's someone that actually played in the NPC with his spare time. NPC is the New Zealand basically the second tier rugby team, I guess the second tier rugby tournament just below Super Rugby level, and he basically went there out of his own interest to pursue more rugby. It's game time, and he's been taken off just 3 minutes. Really disappointing for him, but hey, he's debuted, and it's just gonna be probably want a bit more time in that game. So Wallabies against Ireland, the Matt Williams slammed the tactics of Joseph Suaalii. He basically accused Wallabies of using stupid strategies and not using Suaalii as a weapon as they should. Yeah, I don't know. And he's basically said that Suaalii was left to clean out a lot instead of actually getting the ball. I mean, I think that if you're 13, and if you play a winger, then that's a different story. You kind of need people around you to create space for you. But if you're 13, your job is to create space for other people. And I think that if you're not, if you're not finding yourself in the right positions to receive the ball, and you're left with, a position to clean the rocks out, it's not really the strategic issue from Joe Schmidt. I think it's probably Suaalii not really positioning himself in the right spots. Maybe a lack of communications between him and the forwards as to who should be doing the cleanouts, right? And it's more about that than him getting to do the cleanout work and not getting the ball, as a game plan fail from Joe Schmidt. I thought Matt Williams was a little bit critical there on Joe Schmidt and the game plan, and I think that again, the overall dominance of the Irish team as well, the rush defense, shutting down the 12-13 link there, probably has to give some credit to the Irish defense there as well, than just stupid strategy from the Wallabies not using Suaalii more often. I'm pretty sure that's not what Joe Schmidt had written down on his playbook heading into this game, and I think it's probably more sign of a experience thing from Suaalii than actually a game plan fail from Joe Schmidt. So Matt Williams, yeah, let me know your thoughts about his take there. So Joe Schmidt, he's only, his contract ends next year after the Lions tour, so he's got he literally has about less than 12 months left on his contract, and he's done a pretty decent job putting the Wallabies, especially in the November Test series, in a nice spot, I think. And he's basically gonna have to announce whether he's gonna stay in the Wallabies or not by the end of this year. So basically before Christmas, he will have to let everyone know if he's gonna stay or not to continue after the Lions tour. So we'll have to see how he goes. I think yeah, I mean it is one of the things. If he doesn't want to do the job, who's gonna take over? Stephen Larkham, or maybe they're gonna get Michael Checker back. I don't know. It's like, yeah, I mean Joe has, yeah, the reason he left Ireland was because he wanted to spend more time with his disabled son. He wanted to spend more time with his family, and the whole being assistant coach for the All Blacks was already a little bit like, out of the, you know, a little bit of like, you know, what do they call it? Gateway drug sort of thing for him to get back into rugby. And I think the Wallabies job, you know, it's yeah, I don't know if he wants to be in it for the long term, but I do appreciate his effort. I do appreciate, yeah, bringing the Wallaby back into a relatively, you know, in a much better position than Eddie Jones had left it, regardless of whether he wants to continue or not after the Lions tour. So yeah, Six Nations did a Jaguar rebranding, and this is the new logo that came out. People are not happy. Looks absolutely cheap. Look like someone just used Microsoft and just clicked on like one of those fonts, like default fonts or whatever, one of those fonts that came with Microsoft Word or something, and then just like, yeah, M6, and that's good enough, and then put it in there. Yeah, I mean, the N and the M doesn't even look like they're the same font, right? That's, man, if you got OCD, you will be, yeah, that would get you. Like this N and this M is not even the same font. That is pretty bad. So people are not happy about this. Obviously, the women's version has the W instead of the M at the beginning, and yeah, that is pretty poor branding. It's almost, yeah, it's like Jaguar did a terrible rebranding on their car logo, and then yeah, who like, seriously, who designed this? Like, and they get paid for this. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so yeah, All Blacks wanted to do another trip to America for some more sweet American dollars, and so they basically wanted to do a third test match between France in July in the US, and the French Union came out and said no gracias. Actually, that's not French, but anyway, said no thank you, we are not going to do that. We're just gonna stick to the original game plan and play 3 tests in New Zealand. And it's been interesting because New Zealand's reasoning for wanting to move this test match is because the French is only going to bring a B team to the New Zealand, and New Zealand's like, it's like the New Zealand Rugby's like, yeah, we should probably take this to America for the third game because I don't know if anybody wants their dead rubber in New Zealand. Kind of makes sense financially. You don't want to, you know, you don't want your own I mean, it's French Rugby Union's fault. Like, you don't, like, how could you have a, yeah, anyway, like, how could you go to New Zealand to play? New Zealand was such a great opportunity in a 3-test series, and only bring your B team, right? You're not going to bring Dupont. You're not going to bring any of your Six Nations big stars. It's a bit disgraceful the way that the French is managing this, and this is why you're never going to win the World Cup. I'm sorry, if your players don't want to go to New Zealand, you don't send your best players in the toughest players in the world to play rugby against the toughest team in front of the most, you know, the toughest crowd at Eden Park. If you don't want to do that with your superstar players, you're not going to win the World Cup. Just that simple. It's just that simple. You're not going to win the World Cup if you don't want to go through the, if you don't want to, you know, if you want to give them a break. It's disgraceful for us. And New Zealand was like, we should do it America because there's going to be a bit more interest, a bit more coin, and the French is like, no thank you. Speaking of America, Jordan Mateo has confirmed that he will be going to play NFL in Jacksonville Jaguars. I think, is it Jacksonville? But yeah, it's going to Florida somewhere. I don't know. I don't care. So Andy Farrell Jr. is not looking good with Lions tour, despite Andy Farrell Sr. is the head coach. Jr. is not looking good. He's had a bit of a grind issue playing in France, and he hasn't really performed to the level that, you know, that he used to perform at England Rugby or for the Saracens. So yeah, there's a big cloud as to whether or not he's going to be selected at all. And he's going to get a surgery on his groin as well. So yeah, he's not the happiest man on the planet right now, especially with Lions tour looming. Last Lions tour, he was just left with like a bench role under Gatlin. So finally, his dad is in charge. He's not going to get an opportunity because his own form is a bit lacking. So he has to put on a pretty good shift coming up the next I guess 4 or 5 months to try to get himself a spot there in the Lions tour. So the New Zealanders again wants to make more money. The Silver Lake has put the hammer down and wanted to squeeze more money out of the All Blacks. I don't mind it, to be honest. You got to make money somehow. And there's some talks at putting Super Rugby Pacific games in Europe. First of all, I think it's a good idea if you were to play European teams. But it's not a good idea if you're just playing in Europe with two New Zealand teams going head to head. Because, you talk about you want to capitalize the overseas market. The biggest overseas market for New Zealand Super Rugby teams and with the biggest fans for New Zealand Super Rugby teams is in Australia. Okay, every time they come play in Australia, in that stupid thing they call Super Round, how did that turn out? Okay, it's not a good idea if you don't play against a local European team. If the Crusaders just gonna play with the Blues in Lansdowne Road, that's not gonna happen. You're not gonna make money from that. There might be a novelty thing for the first time there, but you're not gonna be able to consistently get a fan base for that. You can't even fill out a stadium here in Australia where the biggest, New Zealand Super Rugby fan base is based in. Literally the biggest international fan base of New Zealand Super Rugby teams is in Australia. And then you can't even fill out a stadium with super rounds. How do you think this is gonna work moving into Ireland or England or anything like that? I think they have to rethink about who they play against. But I just think that if you're just gonna take a Super Rugby game and put it in Europe, I'm not 100% sure how that's gonna go. And you're depriving the fans a little bit of joy there. So yeah, Stormers, two players has been left their squad for the Champions Cup, and the one is Damain Willemse and one is Stephen Kitsoff. Kitsoff neck fusion surgery, Willemse groin injury, and looks like in this picture it's got a massive booger on his nose. But boy, that's a bit embarrassing. No, sorry, mate. Let's not embarrass you too much. But Willemse is something I thought was a bit interesting because he's someone that's never got injured. Like he since he joined the Springboks in 2000, winning the World Cup in 2019, he hasn't been injured for like 4 years, I don't think. And then suddenly he got a bit of finger issue and he's now just injury prone. He was Mr. Reliable, Rassi. The whole 6-2 bomb squad heavily relied on him being able to come off the bench, cover everybody, and not being injured. And suddenly he's injury prone. This actually leaves a bit of a question to whether or not he's going to be able to have a future involvement in the Springboks because of the injury things. Because the Springboks needs especially their backline, to not have ongoing injury issues. Because, so that's a big question mark, not just because he's, Champions Cup. There's a big question mark of his future in the Springboks, in my opinion. So, let me know your thoughts, because, the Springboks have a very, very tight, scarcity on the backline selections, and they can't have key players going in and out of injuries. Especially with the youngsters coming through like Sasha and with Apalele Fase doing really well in fullback position. Willemse. There's a big question here for him. So let me know your thoughts about him. So Josh Adams is set to return to play in club rugby. He's been injured. Someone who potentially see him again at the Six Nations. And let's make this a bit bigger again. The Tawera Kerr-Barlow, the number 9, a guy who also qualified to play for Wallabies, despite the former All Black qualified to play for the Wallabies. He will be moving to Stade de France, Stade de France, 2-year deal. So he will be living La Rochelle there. And finally, Jaco Peyper has been given a promotion in South Africa. He's been doing some good work with Rassie Erasmus as a referee consultant in the Springboks team. And he's now being added into a I guess, what do you call it? A referee panel, an elite referee panel to assist in overseeing some of the South African referees that's coming through the ranks to get them up into the international test levels. There is currently no South African referees at the test level at all. So yeah, there's something that the Springboks, South African Rugby Union, what do they call it? SARU. Is this still called Rugby Union? South African Rugby Union wants to bring that up to the same level of international test standards. So Peyper's got a bit of additional work to do for his nation. So yeah, that's the news for this week. Let me know your thoughts about any of the articles. Like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks for watching. And I'll see you guys next week. Cheers.